Hi, everybody. This is Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, the Hut. And, of course, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already and like this video. So, we're going to go through a list of the Mets free agents that are on the team now that are going to possibly be free agents. And we're going to go through it and see what they... I'm not going to go so much and talk about what they're going to get in the offseason, but whether they'll be here with the Mets next year. Now, obviously, we got to finish the season. Mets are doing great. Got a big lead. They're playing the Phillies here. Hopefully they'll basically kick the Phillies out of here, kick them down the road. Well, I think they'll kick themselves out down the road. The way they've been playing defensively. But let's get into this. So first up, we'll start with the big guy, and that's Jacob Degrom. Jake, as you know, has been out for a year, but he is now back pitching. He pitched pretty good the first time, and then he pitched great last week against the Braves, and was just awesome. He'll pitch tomorrow night on Saturday. I will not be able to cover that game. I'll be out. I'll be able to cover much of that game, but I'll be back here on Sunday in the live, do a regular live stream. He said he's going to be opting out of his contract after the season. He said that in spring training. He said that right before he was going to pitch, and he's still contending that he's opting out. He's got 2 years left on his contract that he has currently with the Mets. He's got 2 player options. The money that he's going to be making for those 2 years is $32.5 million for next year and $32.5 million for 2024. Now, I would mention this about Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer for the next 2 years is going to be making for the Mets $43.3 million and $43.3 million for the following year. So Jake, if it's about money, he's probably going to want to beat this. But we'll see. Chris Bassett, who has been pretty good. He's been a pretty strong number 3 starter. He was the number 1 starter in Oakland, but he's been the number 3 starter in the Mets. Other than that little dip after Scherzer got hurt, he has pitched really well. He did, when they had contract negotiations to sort of come up with a contract for this year, he has a mutual option for next year with the Mets. I'll put a bit of a question mark whether he gets a long-term deal. Maybe he'll just do the opt-in for next year, and I think the Mets will opt in with him too. He's been very consistent. I mentioned this, the Mets have pitched the 4th most games in Major League Baseball in terms of starting pitching. So their starting pitching goes pretty deep into games. That's important. And he has done a good job. If you look at his statistics from last year, he was doing well in terms of his innings pitched, but he had a bad injury. He got hit in the face by a line drive up to the box, from the box, and he missed a little bit of time. So if you go on to Baseball Reference and you see his statistics, you'll understand why he only pitched 150 innings. It wasn't because he had injuries, because he was hit in the face. So, but we'll see if they give him a long term. He's 33 years old. I think he'll pitch. Just looking at him right now, I could see him pitching until he's 40. But we'll see. The next up, and I would mention, Mets have 4 guys in the rotation that are going to be free agents. The third guy is Taijuan Walker, who had a 2-year deal with the Mets. He's in the 2nd year with the team that he signed last year. I mentioned this about him. He has mentioned that he wants to re-sign with the Mets. He'd love to come back. I would love to have him come back. I think he's been really good here. He made the All-Star team last year. He's been very consistent this year. Other than that one bad start that he had against the Braves last Friday, he has pitched great. So I think that he is somebody that needs to be, not a priority, but he should be considered a person that comes back next season. Now the next guy up is an interesting case. It's Carlos Carrasco, who's one of the leaguers of wins, and the league's at 13 wins. I think he's tied for the wins in the National League. But Carrasco's 36 years old. He's 36 years old. He's obviously has had injury problems. He had an injury last year. He's the one starting pitcher that I can let go from the 4 that are free agents. Because quite frankly, he has not pitched well over the last few years. Wasn't just last year, and he's had the cancer. He's been injured. So I would probably be more willing to let him go. If I were to sign him, maybe a 1-year deal. Maybe. And the Mets have options with that part of the rotation. They could put David Peterson there. They could put Tyler McGill there. So they have pieces here that they can bring in that can replace him. So just keep that in mind. Now, one of the big decisions they're going to need to make for this offseason is Edwin Diaz, the Timmy Trumpet man. He is having just a absolutely incredible season. He's probably going to get a ton of Cy Young Award votes. He's probably going to get a lot of MVP votes. I think he's been the best pitcher in the National League. It's going to be tough without Alcantara, and there seems to be a lot of bias towards a reliever still, just based on he doesn't pitch a lot of innings. Well, the starters don't pitch a lot of innings. And I would mention this about Alcantara. The Mets have beaten him a couple of times. So just to sort of keep that in mind. He has struck out 91 batters out of 172 that he has faced, out of 45 and a third innings. Incredible numbers. He's going to get the record contract in the offseason from some team. I think he's going to stay. I think the Mets should keep him. But we'll see how he finishes the season. If he continues to pitch like this, the way he has, the Mets are going to win the World Series. Because when you get a guy like that at the end of your game, and he doesn't screw up, you're going to win. So keep an eye on him. Adam Ottavino. I don't know. You know, the thing about Ottavino is that Ottavino he's a journeyman. And he's had sort of a weird kind of past in that, you know, he'll give up runs, he'll walk batters. He's been pretty consistent with the Mets. I'd be very careful giving him any kind of long-term deal. You don't want like another Jeurys Familia type deal coming in here where, you know, he pitches lousy after this. I don't know if you want to do that. But I'd give him 1 year deal. That's about it. Seth Lugo. Seth, who's been here for 6 years, I think he'll probably gone. I think he'll be gone after this year. I think he'll be one of these guys that he's been a good Met, but he's had sort of an up and down kind of last year or two, especially after they started cracking down on the substance and on the baseball. I'm not accusing him of anything, but it seemed that his baseballs weren't like having the kind of movement that it had prior to that. But I think that he'll be moving on. I wonder if he still wants to be a starter at his age. I don't know. But we'll figure that out. Trevor Williams, who's a guy that was in the Javier Baez deal. And he has pitched great. He's pitched really well. He's been very consistent. He's come in, he's come in to long relief. He's come in to start. He's come in even to close some games out. He's pitched wonderfully. What a great part of that deal that they made. Now, he's a free agent, believe it or not, for, going into next season. So he could be gone. I would try to sign him. I don't know if it'd be for any length of time, but at least 1 year. Trevor May, who has been missed most of this season. Where's Trevor May? What should the Mets do with Trevor May? He signed a 2-year deal with the Mets. Would I bring him back? No, I'd let him walk. He's been okay, but he gives up too many home runs. We'll have to keep an eye on him. He's obviously coming back from that injury to his arm, so we'll see. The other guy that they just brought in, Michael Givens, we'll see what happens with him. We'll see how he pitches down the stretch. When they get to postseasons, how many innings is he going to get? It's going to be interesting how the bullpen is going to be utilized, because obviously they don't have a lefty that you can really trust. And you have guys that can go deep. Bassett can go deep. Scherzer can go deep. I don't know how they're going to handle Carrasco and Walker. So who knows how many games those guys are going to get. So they might go into the bullpen going forward. So now, position players. We'll start with the little guys first. And I mean not little in terms of just guys that are like the role players. Daniel Vogelbach, he's not a free agent. He actually has 2 more years left before he's a real free agent. So I think he'll be back. He's not a free agent until 2025. So the Mets can have him for next year and this year. I mean, next year and the year after. So he could be the regular DH for the next 2 years after this. Along with Darren Ruff. Darren Ruff signed a contract with the Giants. He's under contract for next year for $3 million and $3.5 million for 2024 with a team option. So in other words, the Mets are pretty much set at DH. So that'll be very interesting how the Mets maneuver DH going forward with Mark Vientos and whoever they want to put into DH in the DH spot. And finally, a couple guys. Tyler Naquin, who they brought in, he's a free agent. He might not be coming back. He might just be purely a rental. And then finally, the big guy, the big player, that's a position player. That's Brandon Nimmo, who's one of my favorite players. He's one of these players that wins a lot of games. He has a very high wins above replacement this year. He always does. He's always walking, always putting good at bats together. Takes a lot of pitches, fights a lot of pitches off. He's been great defensively. He's scored a lot of runs. He's doing everything he can to have a big year. But a couple things. Would I re-sign him? Yes. He's 30 years old. So if I was going to sign him, ideally I'd want to give him a 3-year deal. But he's not going to want a 3-year deal. He's going to want a 7-year deal from somebody. Because that's probably why he hired Scott Boras. So he will be an interesting case study for the Mets. So they're willing to give him a lot of years. Because he's probably going to look for a 7-year deal. I wouldn't do that. Especially with his injury history and the fact that he's 30 years old. You want to be paying him a guy that's had neck problems and back problems to a certain degree. And he's not a physical specimen like, say, Starlin Marte is. So just keep that in mind. So thank you for watching this rather interesting video. I think interesting video and long video. Do a little bit longer videos just to sort of give you a little more content. But there's a lot of players to go through. So a total of 12 free agents the Mets have. So the Mets could have half the team could be different next year. So just think about that for a second. So the Mets are going to have some very interesting decisions to make. And what other ideas they may have. There's probably going to be a change of catcher. There's probably going to be a bit of a change at third base with Brett Beatty here. Coming sometime during the season. Same thing with Alvarez. So the Mets could have a very... And of course, they have Pete Alonso coming up. Getting close to free agency. And they got to bring him back. So this is going to be a very interesting offseason. So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. Thank you. I'll see you later.